Hello, art friends. My name is Fleshwad, and today I'm going to be reading the creepypasta Judge Angels. This creepypasta is written by the user Yagyuyi. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Their first language is not English, so there is a bit of grammar mistakes in this creepypasta, so I'll be trying my best to work around those. But I really loved the character design for this creepypasta, and a lot of you guys have been requesting it, so I decided to read it for you today. Make sure to watch this video in the dark, or with the lights off, and your headphones on. Today is an important day for the Clarks. After 9 months, Mrs. Clark is finally going to give birth to her child. Everybody in the region knows Mr. Clark of the Clarks, that famous and serious judge, lives here. After a few hours, the nurse delivering the child walks out from the room with an awkward expression on her face and goes to Mr. Clark's office to see him. Mr. Clark? The nurse looks at him with a shocking expression on her face. Yes, what is it? Mr. Clark looks at the panicking woman as he frowns. You might need to see it yourself, Mr. Clark. What is it that I need to take a look at? Why not tell me now? Well, your child seems to be a bit special. The two arrived at the room where Mrs. Clark was taking a rest. She's lying on the bed, and next to her is Mr. and Mrs. Clark's child. Mr. Clark noticed that the other people who had been helping with the birth also seemed to be embarrassed. When he walks up to see the child, the expression on his face instantly became more shocked than everyone else. The child is a girl, but her hair is blonde unlike her parents. Mrs. Clark's is red, while Mr. Clark's is brown. The most surprising thing, however, is that the girl has a pair of terrifying eyes. Her eyes are all black. The pupil, the white of the eye, pure black. What monstrous creature is that? Mr. Clark shouts furiously. Nobody says anything. Suddenly, Mr. Clark grabs the still resting Mrs. Clark. You didn't mess around with anyone else, did you? Or how can you give birth to such a monster? Mrs. Clark is very weak right now, Mr. Clark, please. Like I care. Mr. Clark throws her back on the bed. Tell my lawyer to come here, concludes Mr. Clark, as he leaves the room. A few days later, Mr. Clark's lawyer, Taylor, arrives. Mr. Clark, about your child. She certainly is your daughter, without any doubt. The DNA test was not wrong, and the site test showed that her eyesight is normal. The doctor even said that he's never seen a case like this. Her eyeballs are black, but she has no problem with her eyesight. In fact, her eyesight is 2 times that of a normal person's. Taylor, standing in front of Mr. Clark's desk, hands him a stack of documents on the girl's information. But she's a monster. She's not perfect. What I want is a perfect child, Mr. Clark says, without even taking a glance at the documents. Then what should we do? Hand her to the orphanage? Taylor asks. No, that would affect people's impression on me. If that's the case, then I shall not let her go to school. I will recruit tutors to teach her. Don't let anyone see her. Oh, also tell the nurses who helped deliver the child to not tell anyone about this. This is a very bad issue for our family. Mr. Clark closes his book and looks at Taylor. If an accident happens, just finish her off. She is a failure, after all. Years later, Dina Angela, the extraordinary girl, is now 13 years old. She doesn't like to talk, possibly because she was locked up in the mansion all of her life by her father, therefore became antisocial. Dina knows that her father is a very famous judge, and that he does things very fairly. always looking at things in a neutral point of view. However, he always seeks for perfection on everything, which is why he has a very bad relationship with Dina. Despite knowing that her mother and father were never so well with each other before she was born, it can't be changed. Dina has never stepped outside before because of her eyes. She gets a mirror and looks at her eyes. They're pure black, but looking closely, she actually sees little sparkles in them, like a small galaxy. She is often fascinated when looking into her own eyes. Her blonde hair is short and messy, but she usually has it brushed whenever her father is around, though it's her mother who brushes it. For Mrs. Clark, she never cares much about how Dina looks. She is always on her daughter's side, always thinking of her. Of course, she already knows what her husband, who does not like Dina at all, is up to. Dina doesn't have any friends. Her father has been imprisoning her for all of her life, and even though the house is really huge, she still feels very lonely. She used to have thoughts on making a friend or liking a certain boy, but it seems impossible in this situation. Currently, the only person that supports her is her mother, Mrs. Clark, so she really adores her. Dina thinks about these things as she watches the kids play from the window. Suddenly, someone knocks on Dina's bedroom door. "Come in?" Mrs. Clark comes in and says, "Dina, I will be going to the department store later. Do you want me to buy anything for you?" Mrs. Clark says. Dina replies, "No thanks. But dear, you haven't been eating anything recently, and you seem thinner than before. I'll buy you something to eat later." Mrs. Clark left the room before Dina could even stop her. "I told you I don't want it." Despite saying no, Dina actually wants to try something from outside. Clothes, food, none of this interests her now. She wants to try something from the outside world. But no, Dina knows that ever since she was born, the family has had a maid employed by the name of Meisha. And her job is to take care of Dina, but the maid's actual job, in fact, was to be Mr. Clark's bodyguard. He spent a lot of money to recruit this woman who has loads of criminal records to prevent Dina from causing trouble, as well as to protect him. After all, who knows what Dina will do to him? Dina giggles and thought, "If I can, I would want to kill him." It will be Christmas in a few days, but Dina isn't excited about it, since she always spends Christmas as if it's a normal day. For her, it doesn't matter whether she has celebrated it or not. Fortunately, whenever it's her birthday, Mrs. Clark would always prepare a small cake to celebrate with her. If she hadn't done so, Dina would have forgotten how old she is. "Since there won't be any tutoring today, let's do what I usually do," Dina thinks. She stands up from her bed, leaves the room, and starts wandering the house. Even though Mr. Clark locked her up in the house, he never said anything about not letting her walk around. It's a good thing that the house is large, and that the family is pretty much the richest in the region, but Dina isn't happy just because of that. Also, Dina is utterly disgusted by arrogant ones who care only for their pride. Dina always visits Mr. Clark's collection room, and even though he strictly forbids Dina to enter that room, she always sneaks into it. In that room, she can stay for a long time because there is one thing that really catches her eye: a pure white sword. That sword is placed in a glass case and isolated from the other collections, as if it's something really special. When Dina gets close to the sword, it creates a soundless resonance, and that sword always shines in a silvery white color. Dina would stand for hours to watch that sword. According to her mother, there was a legend. The sword originally belonged to an angel, and during a war, the angel accidentally dropped the sword into the human world and was never found by the angel again. However, since then, the humans of the world began using it for different reasons. It was once used to kill, to protect, for personal benefits, etc. Thus, the sword was passed down like this for many, many years. There is also a rumor about the sword considering one who built a good relationship with its master for eternity. Such a beautiful sword. If only you were mine. Dina's black eye reflects the image of the sword. She places her hands onto the glass case and feels as if she's getting sucked in. Suddenly she hears footsteps coming, so she hides. The door opens and someone comes in. It's Meisha. She is doing her daily patrolling. It's obvious that she's looking for Dina since Dina left the room without her permission. To have Dina's actions restricted this badly, she stares at the maid with a hateful look. Dina comes out from where she was hiding as soon as Meisha leaves the room. In the evening, Mrs. Clark returns home with lots of things she bought from the department store. Almost all of them are daily supplies. Unfortunately, she meets Mr. Clark, who doesn't show up often, at the front door. "What did you buy?" Mr. Clark says. He grabs Mrs. Clark's arm as he asks her, and some of the items Mrs. Clark bought fall out, including some of the food she bought secretly. "Why did you buy this food? It's for that monster, isn't it? How dare you buy these things secretly?" Filled with fury, Mr. Clark pushes Mrs. Clark onto the floor. But before he kicks his helpless wife, Dina comes in and blocks her heartless father. "Father, what in the world are you doing?" "You have no right to call me father, you monster. Only the most perfect ones can call me that." Mr. Clark slaps Dina, bouncing her to the side. She stands up from the floor and glares at her father before he says, and leaves. After making sure that Mr. Clark has left, Dina goes up to Mrs. Clark and asks, "Mother, are you alright?" "Don't worry, I'm okay. I'm quite unlucky today. How about you, dear?" "I'm fine, but didn't I tell you not to buy them for me? If Dad sees it..." "It doesn't matter, since you're my only daughter." Mrs. Clark touches Dina's face gently before she says, "Let's sleep together tonight, Dina." The truth is, Mrs. Clark cannot escape her husband's bind, even if she wanted to. She has thought of divorcing him, but she can't give up on Dina. And even if the divorce was successful, it is likely that Mr. Clark would not let them go for good. "Mother?" Mrs. Clark sits on the bed, while Dina lies down on her mother's lap. "Yes?" Mrs. Clark touches Dina's hair softly. "Mother, do you hate me?" "My eyes." Dina looks at her mother with her pure black eyes. "Of course not. Mother really loves your unique eyes. You're my angel after all." Angel. Dina suddenly remembers the sword in the collection room. "Mother, do you want to escape from this home?" "Yes, I've always wanted to." "Then let's run away together." Dina sits up. "Let's leave this place. Then we'll find somewhere where no one will ever find us. And we'll live there." Dina holds her mother's hand. "But Dina, your father is a famous person and he knows a lot of people. So if he was to find us, we'd definitely be in a very bad situation," Mrs. Clark says as she lowers her head. "But Mother, do you really want to live under Father's harsh treatment?" You and I both know that one day I will be finished off by Father, so let's escape this place before that happens. Dina's eyes are filled with flames of her passionate feelings, and as her mother sees Dina's passion, she holds Dina's hand and says, "All right." Seeing her mother determined too, Dina says, "Then we'll run away. On Christmas Eve. I've prepared the plan already." Dina tells Mrs. Clark about her plan until sunrise. Time flies and the day of Christmas Eve has come. Dina and Mrs. Clark will be escaping this house today. This house is no longer home, but hell. The master of this home is a judge, and he is the law. Anybody who goes against him will no longer live on. Dina has been waiting for this day. She has prepared everything and now just needs to wait for the evening to come. She looks at her watch. It is now 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it's time. Dina takes out a pendant. It's a photo pendant. She bought it secretly by sneaking out from the house to a newly opened antique shop. The shop sells many different kinds of things, including the pendant. Since she snuck out while wearing a disguise, she thought people wouldn't notice her. Anyways, she is now going to give that pendant to her beloved mother. Suddenly, Dina's bedroom door slams open, with Mrs. Clark, covered in blood, running in, screaming, "Run, Dina!" Before Dina can react, Mr. Clark pushes Mrs. Clark from behind and walks towards Dina, grabbing her. He shouts, "You monster! I will kill you! How dare you sneak out? Do you even know that because of what you've done, someone had taken a photo claiming that a black-eyed monster has entered our house? I thought it was something else, but now our front yard is crowded with news reporters." Right after he concludes, he throws Dina to the side. Dina, being thrown by her father, has hit her head at the edge of the table and loses consciousness. When Dina regains consciousness, she notices that the floor is freezing. The air feels quite moist. It seems that she is in the dungeon. Mr. Clark has had an interest in the medieval cultures, therefore he built this dungeon in this house. Now that I think about it, Father's taste in this really disgusts me, Dina thinks. She stands up and wanders around the place. It seems like the only exit of this dungeon is the door. There's nothing here, and despite Dina's body being very slim, it is still not possible for her to escape through the metal bars. Suddenly, Dina hears someone coming towards her. She stares at the person closely in the dark. "Hey, you little monster. How does it feel being here?" The footsteps came from Meisha, the hateful woman. "I knew your plans from the beginning, and that's why I sent photos of you outside to the news reporters. Ugly one." Meisha looks at Dina with a despicable look. "You beastly girl. Oh, but aren't you the same? You are also being controlled by my father, aren't you? Forced to depend on my father because of that? You horrible woman, you are no different from a monster. You thought I don't know how you seduced my father every night, didn't you?" Dina looks at Meisha, laughing. Dina laughs non-stop until Meisha, irritated, opens the dungeon door and gave her a few punches, till she coughed up blood. "Enough, you freaking monster! Your father told me that I can always finish you however I want." Meisha shouts as she stomps on Dina's head. "That's enough." Dina, who is still being stomped, starts giggling creepily. Dina laughs hysterically as she opens her eyes widely. "No!" Dina grabs Meisha's ankle tightly as she screams, "The one who should be punished is you!" Dina stands up, and with her one hand still holding onto Meisha's ankle, she hits the woman in the knee with the other hand with immense power. instantly reflexing Meisha's knee. The pain caused Meisha to scream to tears. Then Dina sits on Meisha and slaps her a few times while she laughs. Dina then starts to strangle Meisha. "You shouldn't provoke me. You should never provoke an angel." Meisha struggles continuously. She grabs Dina tightly and scratches her arm to the point of having her skin scratched off. But Dina does not feel anything, because she knows that the person in front of her has to be punished. "That's right, Meisha. I knew all about what you have done, and I've always known about it, so I need to judge you. Meisha." Dina's face approaches Meisha's. Her large eyes stare at the woman, and the woman looks back with a terrible look. Meisha. Is it Meisha or Meisha? I have no idea. I said Meisha, so that's what we're going with. Okay. "What you have done, you cannot escape from an angel's eyes. So I now announce, you're..." Dina strangles Meisha even harder as she whispers to the woman's ears, "Guilty." Dina tightens her grip as Meisha's eyes turn white. Now everything is quiet. After making sure that Meisha isn't breathing anymore, Dina stands up, excited, and says, "Phew, I killed someone. I killed someone." Dina laughs hysterically as she hugs herself, because she has finally done something she has always wanted to do. It's time for more trials. Dina immediately switches back to her serious personality. She arrives in the collection room and walks towards the glass case, looking at the sword inside with a cold look. It's time. Come. Even though she said she will leave this place, she has changed her plans. She will finish this once and for all and leave this place along with her mother. An hour later, Dina, covered in blood, arrives at Mr. Clark's office. "Father." She opens the office door slowly, but sees no signs of her father. However, just before she is about to leave, she sees someone lying on the floor. She gets closer and sees that person clearly. She cries, "Mother!" Dina runs toward her mother and holds her up. Her mother is covered in knife wounds, and she is no longer breathing. No, Mother!" There's nothing left for her. Now her beloved mother has gone. Dina cries as she hugs her mother, but then she notices the reflection on the sword. Someone is approaching her, and she recognizes him. When the person comes close, Dina suddenly grabs the sword and slashes him, making him fall. "Hello, Father." One of Mr. Clark's legs has been chopped off. Mr. Clark crawls on the ground, trying to escape, but Dina stops him by stepping on his wound. Mr. Clark shouts, "Father, I thought you were gone. It would really trouble me if you were," Dina says as she stabs her father in his stomach with the sword. She stabs, and stabs, making her father excessively bleed. "What's going on, Father? Aren't you strong all the time? How can you get so low by a monster?" Dina's eyes are filled with crazy and murderous thoughts. "You know, it feels so nice to judge and sentence people. Maybe I'll become a great judge someday." Dina swings her sword. "Judge. Like hell will a monster become a judge. A judge is only suitable for those who are fair and perfect." Mr. Clark pants. Dina points the sword at her father and says, "Then are the things you've done ever the fairest? Ha! I'm way better than you, way too much." Dina stabs her father harshly every time she says a word. His organs flow out from him, and they are either being minced or mashed by Dina. Mr. Clark, suffering from severe injury and excessive bleeding, glares at Dina and shouts, You monster! Monster? No. I am an angel that is born to punish you. Dina raises her sword. Danny Clark, I now announce, you're guilty! Dina slashes with her sword, chopping her father's head off before he has time to react. The man's body collapses as his head falls to the ground. Dina picks up her father's head, talking as she looks at it. Father, I knew everything. What you have done so far, all being seen with my eyes, even if you don't treat me like a normal human. Dina throws his head into the burning hearth. For some reason, Dina notices that her blood is boiling, and that she adores everything she has done. That's right, she now considered everything reasonable. She grabs the sword tightly, shaking her hands and shivering at the same time. She has lost her mind. Dina puts her mother's corpse into a suitcase. Don't worry, Mother. I will find a nice place to bury you. Dina says to her mother's corpse as she gently touches her mother's hair. Dina changes her clothes into a white one, which shows her white complexion. Then she prepares herself and the sword, which is creating a resonance that seems to express the joy for Dina. Is that so? That's right, I am now your master. I am an angel. I have the right to decide whether people live or get killed by me. Dina swings the sword as she talks to it. She leaves the house with the heavy suitcase and walks towards the forest. She looks at the burning mansion before she steps into the forest. She smiles with the satisfaction and disappears. There was a fire at the Clark's mansion last night. When the police and the firefighters arrived, they discovered large amounts of dead, decapitated corpses. The police suspect that most of the corpses were the servants of the Clarks. Of course, they also found Mr. Clark's body, with his head, burnt to the bone, discovered in the hearth. Mrs. Clark's body was not found, but she is also suspected dead, as they found her blood in Mr. Clark's office. Taylor, Mr. Clark's lawyer, was also found dead after the fire started. They too died from decapitation. Mr. Clark's neighbor was questioned whether the family had a child or not. All of them answered no. No data showed that the Clarks had ever had a child either. 1 month later. Good morning, this is David Starter here at Morning News. It seems that a few people have witnessed a sword-wielding girl in white last night. Let's ask some of the witnesses about the incident. She's an angel. I saw her wings. She's a head-carrying white ghost. She's here to judge us and take our lives. A man who was watching the news laughed in front of the TV and said, Angels. It must be a lie made up by stupid people. Like hell, angels exist in this world. He walked into a dark alley to smoke, and just before he put the cigarette in his mouth, he is pushed into the wall by someone. Using the very dim lighting, he sees a girl in white. Wait, can you be? The man struggles as he speaks, but the girl cuts in before he can end the sentence. Shh, you need to be quiet before a trial. How dare you defy an angel? Because of this, I now announce you. So that was the Creepypasta Judge Angels. Let me know what you guys thought down below. Honestly, I don't think it's the best creepypasta, but I did really love the character design, and I really wanted to draw Dina, or Judge Angels. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the story or the art, make sure to leave a like. And yeah, that's gonna be the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!